that the May 1st, 2026 Budget Council meeting agenda be adopted as presented.
Seconder, Councillor Hoffman. All in favor? Carried. New business 2026 tax rate options. Report dated May 1st, 2026 from the Director of Finance regarding 2026 tax rate options. Recommendation. Put a recommendation on the floor that the 2026 tax rate options report be received for review and discussion. Seconder, Councillor Noxana. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Ms. Scott, staff prepared to just do a quick high-level overview?
Yes, I will let Chris from the FIT team give council an overview of what we are presenting to you tonight.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So tonight on the agenda, we've prepared a quick presentation, and the presentation encompasses, just to go over the timeline again for financial plan and tax rate bylaw adoption, as well as changes that were directed since last week. We have a discussion for non-market change prepared, if that pleases Council, and then an overview of the tax rate options. Thank you, Your Worship.
Go ahead and share the information you've prepared, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. 1 second, Ms. Scott. Okay, here we are. So just to review again the timeline that we've undertaken so far, several budget meetings have taken place since we began the process after the staff prepared the first draft from March 10th through to April 27th. And now another budget meeting here today, May 1st, and we're looking for potentially first three readings May 5th and May 11th. And just wanted to note that the statutory requirements for public consultation have been thoroughly met as a result of that budget process. The only change from last from last meeting as directed by Council was to increase the grant writing expenditure funded by surplus. So we've made that change in the draft bylaw before you. And then we've integrated what we are recommending today. However, we recognize that that wasn't directed by Council, so we'll take direction from you tonight. So we've integrated a reduction in the transfer to reserve budget due to the impact of non-market change, which we'll go over shortly. So I've just prepared a quick conceptual overview of non-market change. In my experience, this is one of the more difficult concepts to understand for both CFOs and lay people and councillors as well. So I thought it would be a good opportunity just to go over that concept. So non-market change is essentially a tax increase on existing properties. So non-market change is a tax increase above and beyond that for new properties. So when we consider what financial impact we're going to have, we have to consider it in terms of last year's property taxpayers that existed. And then we have to consider separately the new taxpayers that came on board, so new assessments. So non-market change refers to new properties added to the assessment roll that they didn't exist last year. Or alternatively, if you've lost a building, understand there was a fire in Tumbler Ridge and there's a building that was lost, that's tax assessment that's taken off the roll. So it can go both directions. So new properties that come on board generate new tax revenues, and they do that without increasing the tax rates on existing properties, which is why we calculate this as part of our process. So I just prepared an illustrative example for Council to consider. I know there's a lot of words on the screen here, but I've also actually done an illustration afterwards as well. I'm a visual learner. So assume for a moment that there's 10 properties in your municipality. Each are assessed at $100,000 and the tax rate is 1%. That will result in basically a $1,000 tax bill for every single property. And altogether, the district would receive about $10,000 in tax revenue. Well, assume then in 2026, you've decided to pass on no tax increase, just for simplicity and illustration. That's the assumption. But there's one new property. So you've got 11 properties now. that new property using existing tax rates will also pay $1,000. So you'll have $11,000 in tax revenue. So just simple demonstration there. 2025, you got 10 houses. 2026, you got 11 houses. The red one is new. And so there's additional property tax revenue as a result of that. So the question here is, does this mean there's a 10% tax increase? We've got $11,000 in 2026 versus $10,000 in 2025. That's 10% more property tax revenue. Does that mean that there's a tax increase that resulted? And the answer is no, because the existing taxpayers that were there before, they're not paying any more than they ever were. There's just one additional taxpayer, and they're paying the same tax rate as everyone else. Right? So there's the existing taxpayers from 2025. We need to compare and figure out what we're doing to them. And then we need to figure out what we're doing with the revenue from this new taxpayer. So this is how the district typically manages your non-market change. And this is what you did last year, for instance. So non-market change is usually allocated to a transfer to reserve budget. You got a really big increase in non-market change revenue for new major industry taxes. And if you had brought that into general operations, it would put you at risk of financial sustainability. So instead, you allocate it to a transfer to reserve budget. So every year, it's going to fund that transfer to reserve. If at some point the district incurs costs due to growth, due to the new citizens, or maybe industry is driving new costs in your community, you can then reallocate that to fund operating expenses, and you do so without incurring a tax increase. So that's why we put non-market change into a transfer reserve budget, so that when the cost catch up with it, you can draw down and allocate it over to the operating expenses. So again, here's an example, right? In 2025, 10K in revenues, 10K in operating expenses, you're in budget, you're in balance, according to the community charter. In 2026, you get an extra $1,000 because you have a new property, but you still only have $10,000 in operating expenses. So you're going to transfer that extra $1,000 to reserve. You've got a balanced budget. Now, if in 2027 that extra tax base disappears, and now you're back to having 10 taxpayers, the fact that you didn't increase your operating expenses means that you don't have to increase taxes. You simply reduce that transfer to reserve budget, right? So your revenues go back down because you now only have 10 properties, and you get rid of that transfer to reserve budget, and your taxes on your existing properties stay exactly the same. So that's the sustainability practice that CFOs undertake, just to ensure that, with new development and the lag behind of operating expenses, there's not big swings in tax increases. So this is pretty well what's happened in your community, but it's on the industry tax base. Last year, you received a lot of new built infrastructure for major industry, and it was a lot of money. And wisely, you folks, with advice from the CFO at the time, put the most of that aside in transferred reserve budget. It was going to the tax stabilization reserve. And so that way, if the industry up and left tomorrow, then you wouldn't have to incur a tax increase. You would simply remove that transfer to reserve budget. Now, mind you, I say most of it went to a transfer reserve. Some of it you did take into operations, which means if all of that happened last year left tomorrow, there would be a tax increase or a service level cut required. But considering how significant it was pretty good. So in 2026, though, the district has experienced negative non-market change, meaning some infrastructure that was in light industry has left. So it's been decommissioned or some other thing. And that has the equal and opposite tax impact. So using the same principles, council should, if you believe in those same principles, should reduce the transfer to reserve budget, just like it increased last year. And that way you don't affect existing taxpayers. So that's our recommendation, and we've integrated that into the draft financial plan. But again, that's subject to council direction. We've offset the negative non-market change by reducing the transfer to reserve budget, and this maintains a 5.2% property tax increase target that we've been talking about throughout So we've got a couple options for council to consider. There's a 5.26% tax increase, and we would have to reduce the transfer to reserve budget to accomplish that. The other option is do not adjust the transfer to reserve budget. We need to keep that total revenue target that was in the budget. That would increase the average taxes for residents in other classes except for class 2 to 7.57%. And the other option is to forget about non-market change, irrespective of non-market change, just add a 5.95% tax increase to all tax classes. And that would, I would say, if you believe in the principles, unfairly disadvantaged light industry, because light industry has lost assessment base. So the taxpayers that existed last year in light industry will see a disproportionate tax increase. But the total taxes per class would go up 5.95% each. And the council has other options. You can, at your whim, with some restrictions, shift taxes within classes. So if you say, well, we really think that the residential class is overtaxed and light industry is undertaxed, let's shift $100,000. We can do that, and we're prepared to show you the impact. Or conversely, I'm not recommending one way or the other. Or conversely, if you say, well, business is overtaxed, we want to shift that to residential, you can do that. I usually recommend, if council wants to do that, that you undertake some sort of study to provide context. Mind you, the concept of tax equity is very much a subjective opinion. So staff really just provide, contextual information, comparative information from other municipalities, but we're not going to tell you what's fair or not fair. That's really a governance decision. So, but it takes a lot of work, and it can have impacts, which is why we don't recommend making sudden changes before the tax rate gets adopted. But we're able to do that if you want. So here's the three options, not including the shifting option, that council might consider. Option 1, 2, and 3. I've given you a dollar value approximately of what an average single-family dwelling would incur. So $62 is option 1, and that's consistent with what we've been communicating through the financial plan budget process. And then you've got the other two there as well. Now, I've also prepared just a spreadsheet in case council wants to, ask any questions. It's hard to do this for a business. It's hard to say, well, if we increase business by 5.26%, what does that look like to the average business? Every business is different. Single family dwellings are definitely more comparable, so it means something. But and I know your community is smaller, but in a community like, say, Victoria, a Walmart versus a small restaurant, the impact is so different. So you can't come up with an average. But I did look at your average values, and let's say, a business is worth $130,000. I could tell you what the tax impact would be, depending on your decisions, to $130,000 a business. And I hope that kind of resonates with, the business size in your community. So these are the recommendations that are in the report, I believe. If council is obliged to go with, or is eager to go with the staff recommendation, we've got a motion prepared that the transferred reserve budget be adjusted, and that we go and prepare the bylaws. We've got the bylaws prepared for publishing for the May 4th. So I'll stop right there and ask if council has any questions or comments.
Thank you. I just have one question for now. Ms. Scott, have we not lost residential for assessment in regards to the apartment?
Yes, we did. That was part of the non-market change.
Okay. That's what I'm sure.
Just for clarification, the non-market change was affected more in light industry, but yes, we did have a non-market change in residential as well.
Okay. Yeah, because just the only reason I asked that was just because we mentioned light industrial, not the residential, that we would have been the non-market change. Council questions, comments? Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for the refresher on non-market changes. It's been a year, so I did need that. I appreciate it. Looking at our options, I understand we can, of course, be a little more granular and change individual lines. I am personally not comfortable with option 3 at all. I am not interested in going on just sort of total money level and jacking the tax rate for light industry. And I'm inclined to agree with staff and go with option 1. I know we're trying not to mess with transfer too much, but that apartment's going to be rebuilt if we are just partially covering it for the next couple of years to not place the burden on the rest of residential. I am okay with that. And I think with the last couple of years of having a relatively high increase in tax rate, I was shooting for around 5% in my mind this year. So staff has managed to do that with 5.26, and I am quite comfortable with that number. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns from council? Councilor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mayor. I've just got 2 questions here. So I'm just looking for the non-market changes here. I'm looking at page 12 of the agenda. It has the market growth column as well as the non-market changes. So does the market growth overall, the total numbers on the right-hand column, does that represent our negative change this year, or is it just specifically the middle column that's showing the non-market change?
Ms. Scott?
I will ask Chris with the FIT team to provide that explanation to Councillor Bertrand's question.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I don't believe I have a copy of the agenda. So is this in the financial plan bylaw? I believe there's some information in there about non-market change. Is that where we're looking?
Yes.
Yeah, it's in, yeah.
Okay, one moment here, and I think.
So that's a 2026 over 2025 changes in property value assessments provided by BC Assessment Authority, top left side.
Okay, one quick moment here. Just pulling it up. Okay. Right, okay. Okay, so, sorry, if I could have the council repeat the question. I do have the information in front of me now, so I should be able to answer that.
Councilor
Sure thing.
Bertrand?
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm just curious, you've stated that we're in a negative non-market change this year. So is the column in the middle that's showing the non-market changes, is that what we're going off of, or does it go by the total, which includes the market growth?
Thank you. Yes, good question. It is the non-market change, including new construction. That column is what's driving the erosion of the tax base. At the end of the day, what assessment rule you end up with, including that, is what you have to use as a basis for your tax rates. So this kind of shows what the impact that non-market change has on your tax base. But at the end of the day, you have to use your tax base to charge.
Follow-up?
Thank you. So the total column here, it appears that it's a positive change. That doesn't factor in.
Ms. Scott?
Again, I will ask Chris from the FIT team to provide that explanation.
So if I'm looking at the correct item here, the totals are mostly negative. You have a negative residential, a negative 1.75% total, negative light industry of 4%, 4.01%. So those are what are mainly driving. So overall, we have a mainly negative, a reduced assessment base, if we can put it that way.
Okay. Yeah, I just have one other question. I'm just wondering if we have the percentage ratio breakdown of each tax class according to total revenue.
Absolutely. Yep, we can provide you with the ratios. Now, the ratios for, as you're likely aware, the regional district taxes are set by regulation, but the municipal ones are, they have some limits, but they're not set by legislation. So one quick moment here. Probably share my screen. Okay. And is there any particular ratio that you would like to know? I'm assuming the industrial tax as well as the business class ratio are the ones of keen interest.
If I may, yeah, the business, light industry, major industry, residential, and recreation. Yes,
Okay.
please.
Yeah, so residential is always going to be one. Major industry is 20.39 for the proposed tax rates. Light industry is 9.26. Business is 2.57, and rec is 3.74.
And sorry, what was residential?
Yeah, residential is one.
1%?
The denominator of the ratios is the residential tax rate. That's why the residential is one.
Okay, any other comments, concerns, or discussion by council? Ms. Scott, can we get the acquisitions for PRRDA, hospital tax, school tax?
Yes, I actually will ask the Director of Finance. I started bringing that up. I don't have all of that up, so I will ask the Director of Finance if he can find that quicker for council.
Would you like them brought up on screen, or can I just kind of speak them out loud?
Ms. Scott, be fine with just verbal.
Verbal is fine. Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Scott, if we can just get a percent of increase on each of those as well. And council's well aware we can't adjust those, but it was asked earlier if we had those numbers yet.
Okay, so just as a total amount, for the 2026 regional district requisition, we have the amount based on improvements, and that is at $334,281. And then the amount based on land and improvements, which is for their administrative, legislative, management of development, gotta go invasive plants. That requisition is at 173,564. And sorry, the previous one for 334,281, that's regional connectivity, health-related services, regional parks, regional recreation, Tumbler Ridge Museum, Global Geopark, Sport and Culture, GIA, 911 emergency telephone system, and regional solid waste management. So that's all encompassed by the 334. And then for the hospital district, I can pull that up too. It's being a little slow on my screen here. Okay, so for the Peace River Regional District Hospital, Peace River Regional Hospital District, the requisition is $577,692. I don't know if the FIT team, do you guys have the prior numbers to represent as a percentage increase?
Yeah, I have, for the hospital district, I don't, in front of me. But for the regional districts, those numbers were spot on. And if we add them together, it looks like a 4.2% increase from last year.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions, comments, or discussion by council? Okay, I'd be looking forward to a recommendation or something, other direction to staff. Council Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the recommendation that the transfer to reserve budget, general fund, be reduced to $4,703,206, and that uniform 5.26 tax increases, including the impact of non-market change, be applied to all property classes except Class 2 utilities, and that staff be directed to prepare the District of Tumbler Ridge 2026-2030 Financial Plan Bylaw number 761-2026 and the Tumbler Ridge Tax Rate Bylaw number 762-2026 based on option 1 presented in this report.
Seconder, Councillor Hoffman, discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Councillor Bertrand's opposed, motion carries. Ms. Scott, any emailed in questions?
No.
Thank you. Take adjournment, please. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor, that the May 1st, 2026 Budget Council meeting be adjourned.
Seconder, Councillor Hoffman, all in favor? Carried.